Hey guys, welcome back to Contest Prep University. I'm Klemczewski with Adam Atkinson. We are in episode 3 of Maximizing Your Metabolism. And Adam, I'm ready to dive into the dieting aspect. What really happens when we diet? And everybody has these fears, from metabolic damage to metabolic adaptation, metabolic suppression. And again, I have to go to some studies, and a lot of them, to show people that even if you diet for a long, long time, I mean, what's the worst diet you could think of? Like, let's just say The Biggest Loser, right? They're starving these people, they're working them to death. And one researcher looked at 30 of those, I think it was about a dozen or more of those competitors for 30 weeks. And they found from the beginning of the diet to the end of 30 weeks, which you're getting on, what, 3/4 of a year, their metabolic needs only drop down about 500 calories, and that's under the most extreme conditions. Another researcher showed that if you dropped a pound a week for 4 months, so that's a pretty long diet, right? Like 4 months, there's virtually no change. Your metabolism does not adapt or become suppressed, because it's more about, first, the speed in the actual calorie intake, but going all the way back to our first episode, genetics. Whatever your genetic metabolic rate is, as long as you're not in super extreme conditions, meaning an actual starvation or what's medically called a very low calorie diet, then you're gonna be safe. And I would say that those people on The Biggest Loser were probably under that category of a very low calorie diet. And that's where you saw a metabolic adaptation of an average of 500 calories, which I think is pretty reasonable for most people. We can probably mitigate it to not be quite that much, but when you started diets and then you get down to, month 2, month 4, month 6, whatever, there is a little bit of a shift. So what has your experience been with that, with all of the clients you've worked with over the years, Adam?
Yeah, as a lot of people do think they have metabolic damage, it's usually a lack of control afterwards. And what people forget is the metabolism's always in flux. As you diet down, your heart rate slows down. Every step that you take is now less calories burned because you're lighter. You're going to have more leptin sensitivity. All these pathways are changing. One of the bigger things that can take a hit is the thyroid, but this is kind of why the metabolism's always in flux, and people start thinking that they are ruining their thyroids dieting. And I'd have to look back. I think it was Dr. Greer. He had people who were misdiagnosed with thyroid conditions. He gave them, I think a lot of the people were on T3 for over like 30 years, and he took them off in 2 weeks. Their thyroid levels came back to normal. And you just don't suppress like you do with like testosterone, where it's, you're getting this exogenous form and your levels just drop and they're forever low. It's always in flux, and your thyroid gland's just really resilient. So will it take a hit with dieting? Absolutely. But if you treat your body with kindness on the way up, you're going to adapt upward fast and quickly, depending on your metabolism. But you can really see those. It's almost like a post-weight loss, where you start bringing calories up and you start having upward adaptation, where you're actually losing with eating more food. And there's nothing really magical about that, aside from you're fighting a lot of temptation with not eating more, because your body's in a state of survival. So it's saying, we recognize this energy crisis you gave us for months, and now we want to get away from that as quickly as possible.
And to your point, it is that important to be in control, because, an analogy I like to use is like compressing a spring. When you're dieting, you are putting your body in that state where it definitely wants to restore that energy. It wants to refill glycogen levels. It wants to add adipose back into, fat cells or adipose cells. And you are absolutely priming yourself for that regain. So even when you're doing higher calorie days, or you start trending back upward into maintenance levels, you've got to take those stages very carefully, so you're not regaining body fat. You can refill glycogen levels. You can have that nice break socially, but you really have to understand that a lot of the times when people talk about metabolic damage or something, it's the fact that they overate in that very suppressed position. And that's what happens. The body wants to restore that body fat.
I find nowadays too, because of social media, a lot of people are chasing a number for food and they don't even know why. And it's really interesting to me because honestly, I've seen people who have came to me and they were posting about their intake and they were actually lying about it, or their coach actually gave them meal plans that said they were higher calories or higher protein, carbs, and fats than they actually were eating. I had a girl, said she was eating 200 grams of carbs a day, and she was eating a ton of vegetable fiber, and she was really at 90, but her coach, I don't know if he did it on purpose or if he was that bad at math, but
No, it's a weird status thing now. And yeah, if a coach will tell you, oh yeah, I can give you 200 grams of carbs and you'll still lose weight. I mean, what a con, right?
Yeah, you can talk numbers all day, but adherence is really the key too. So it's really hard for us to make, anecdotal evidence because our evidence depends on if our clients are actually being accurate or not.
Which is what we're going to talk about in the next episode when we get into total daily energy expenditure. So you guys stay tuned, and we'll be back in Contest Prep University.